Hello, this is the plant-based nutritionist Cath King at Seeking Health. I help people to feel full without feeling fat and prevent and reverse chronic degenerative disease using the food we were born to eat, our species-specific diet. Today I'm sharing with you my point of view about how nutritional research can be misused. Often people feel like giving up on improving their health with diet due to the huge amount of conflicting advice out there that seems to be based on science. And it can be hard to know who to trust and what's actually correct. And that's largely due to some very unscrupulous research that goes on in order to promote the financial interests of certain industries. And today I'd like to share with you two examples of research that's been highlighted by the media that if you read about them in the newspaper or heard about them on the news, they would give you some very unhelpful and dangerous ideas about how you should be eating. The first one I'd like to talk to you about is a study that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine on heart disease risk. And this study randomly assigned 7,447 people in Spain who were overweight, were smokers, or had diabetes or other risk factors for heart disease to follow a Mediterranean diet with added olive oil, or a Mediterranean diet with added nuts, or a low-fat diet. And over the years, this study has gotten a lot of press. So let's take a closer look at the study. Now, to me, this study is a great example of something that's been misrepresented by both the researchers and the media. And the flaws in the way it has been reported are enormous, and they only further concerns about how media misrepresents health information and how researchers can promote conclusions that are not actually supported by their work. So here are some of the problems with that particular study. First of all, the low-fat group was not low-fat at all. They consumed a diet that was 37% fat. And in addition, the reduction in fat they experienced over the course of the study was only from 39% to 37% fat. So it was only a 2% reduction. So not only was the group not low fat, they experienced a non-significant reduction in total fat as well. And the authors also knew that from the very beginning that the group that they were calling low fat was going to have poor compliance. And they actually stated that exact knowledge in an earlier paper on the same study and diet. And in spite of knowing this, and in spite of the difficulty that the low-fat group was going to have in complying, the low-fat group received virtually no support at all in following this diet during the first half of the study. The low-fat group was also encouraged to consume refined grains and carbohydrates and even sugary drinks like soft drinks. And the low-fat group still consumed fatty dairy and meat. And as reported on the 1, 3 and 5 year follow-up diet scores, the two experimental groups, so that's the olive oil group and the nut group, consumed a statistically significant greater amount of legumes, vegetables and fruits, and significantly less butter, cream and margarine than the control group or the low-fat group. The experimental groups also consumed less bakery products on the 1 and 3 year follow-ups than the control groups. Next problem is that while I don't think funding itself is always an issue, This study was not well done, is being misrepresented, and the funding sources of the lead authors really sound like the marketing team for the Mediterranean Travel and Tourism Bureau. So just to name two of the lead authors, Dr. Estrach reports serving on the board of and receiving lecture fees from the Research Foundation on Wine and Nutrition, also serving on the boards of the Beer and Health Foundation and the European Foundation for Alcohol Research. And Dr. Sarah Magem reports serving on the boards of the Mediterranean Diet Foundation and the Beer and Health Foundation. And this was only two of them. There are probably, I think, about 5 more lead researchers or lead authors that have similar kind of ties to organizations that really have a vested financial interest in having a positive result for high-fat Mediterranean-style diets. Next of all, the next issue I have is that the 2 Mediterranean diet groups were encouraged to include sources of omega-3 fatty acids, which are known to be heart healthy. On the other hand, the low-fat diet group was discouraged from consuming sources of essential fat omega-3s. Also, there was no significant difference for almost all outcomes, including heart attacks, death from cardiovascular causes, or death from any cause. The only significant difference that was reported was for stroke, which is not surprising considering the emphasis on omega-3s in the 2 Mediterranean experimental type groups. Next, the absolute differences between the groups was not great, and it could more realistically, more accurately, be viewed that all groups experienced somewhat similar rates of disease. So another way to look at it is that all 3 high-fat Mediterranean diets produced similar rates of disease, but the groups that emphasized healthier foods and more omega-3s experienced a little less disease. So the conclusion of the study should be that they found a significant reduction in stroke in those consuming a Mediterranean diet higher in omega-3 fatty acids and healthier foods when compared to those who were not making those same changes in their diet. And that is not new news, and it should have been expected, and it does not in any way compare to the results we get with whole food plant-based diets where fat intake is between 10 and 20% of calories consumed. And so that's my problems with this heart disease study that has been popular for many, many years. And secondly, there's the second study I'd like to look at is in a way similar, and there's one that was being reported recently by Dr. Michael Greger, and he reported on his nutritionfacts.org website just the other day a study out of the University of North Carolina which showed no association between dietary fiber intake and diverticulosis. Now, diverticulosis is a condition that develops when pouches form in the wall of the colon, and it's long been thought that low fiber consumption was the cause. But in this experiment, even when the experimental group was eating 3 times the amount of fiber as the low fiber group, there was no difference found. And so they concluded that a low fiber diet was not associated with diverticulosis. And of course the press picked it up and it's now out there in the general public. But what the press and the public don't know is that the high fiber group, this is the group that was eating 3 times the fiber of the control group, was eating 25 grams of fiber a day. Now, In New Zealand, the recommended daily intake for fibre is 30 grams for men and 25 grams for women, so they were getting pretty close to what health professionals in New Zealand recommend. But is this figure actually true? And how much fibre should we really be eating? Well, research shows that we evolved eating over 100 grams of fibre a day, and populations with the lowest rates of diverticulosis, so next to no diverticulosis like those in rural Africa, are still eating 70 to 90 grams of fibre a day. So the study was actually comparing one fibre deficient diet to another fibre deficient diet, just like the Mediterranean diet study was comparing one high-fat diet to another high-fat diet. So of course they were seeing no difference in diverticulosis rates, just as the Mediterranean diet study showed no benefit to a so-called low-fat diet. And people are being given this kind of incorrect advice now by experts. And again, when you look at the truly meaningful research being done on diverticulosis, the results show consistently that vegetarian and vegan diets that are high in fibre are protective against diverticulosis. And this is exactly the kind of diet that I show people how to eat on my programs and in my coaching. So that's all for today. And if you found this post interesting and informative, I invite you to check out my website and subscribe to my newsletter so that you can have access to lots more information, articles, recipes, webinars, videos, and special offers. So until next time, here's to your best health.